America threatens to pull the plug on Ukraine peace talks. Donald Trump and his top diplomats say the US is ready to move on from brokering a truce if an agreement is not reached soon.
If for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass.
Also tonight, British siblings are among those killed after a cable car plunges 100 feet in Italy. The race is on to reach the Premier League as Leeds close in on promotion. And
heavenly header from miles out of the way. It's 200 to 1.
The 200 to 1 outsider that's joined a handful of horses to beat racing's longest odds.
This is ITV News with Lucy Watson.
Good evening. Donald Trump said many times that if he was elected president, he'd be able to stop the war in Ukraine in a day. Even allowing for hyperbole, he's fallen far short. And today, he and his Secretary of State both made the shocking suggestion that they were thinking about giving up altogether. Marco Rubio said that without clear progress in the next few days, America could move on to other things. And Mr. Trump backed him, saying if foolish and horrible people on either side were too difficult, he could take a pass. Here's Martha Fairley.
There is still no sign from Russia that it is looking for a peace deal. Instead, Moscow has been ramping up its attacks on civilian targets in Ukraine. This fire in the city of Mykolaiv, the result of a drone strike on warehouses overnight. While in Sumy, one person was killed in an attack on a bakery producing cakes for Easter. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been in Paris meeting with British, European and Ukrainian delegations. But after talks concluded, he warned the White House could be ready to abandon further attempts to broker peace.
The president has spent 87 days at the highest level of his government, repeatedly taking efforts to bring this war to an end. We are now reaching a point where we need to decide and determine whether this is even possible or not, which is why we're engaging both sides. So if they're serious about peace, either side or both, we want to help. If it's not going to happen, then we're just going to move on.
This evening, President Trump confirmed he's losing patience with the peace process.
If for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass. But hopefully we won't have to do that. No, Marco's right in saying it. We want to see it end.
Separately, Ukraine's economy minister confirmed a memorandum giving the US access to Ukraine's mineral resources has been signed. The deal, yet to be finalised, will involve the creation of an investment fund for the reconstruction of Ukraine. But there's no mention of security guarantees that Kyiv has been seeking.
Could we possibly see the normalisation of US-Russian ties, and the whole Ukraine problem is just left to Europe? I think that is one scenario, but if Trump were to go down that route, I think he'd risk looking weak. So if the US then lifted sanctions as the Russians would like, so I suspect that in this case the relationship just might go cold.
President Trump had boasted he would bring the war in Ukraine to an end in just 24 hours, but the bombs are still falling, and the people of Ukraine still bearing the heavy cost of this war. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Well, back here, the Prime Minister spoke to President Trump on the phone today in a wide-ranging conversation about Ukraine and security, trade and tariffs, but not, if number 10 is to be believed, Mr Trump's upcoming state visit to the UK. Well, our political correspondent, Shihab Khan, is with me now. Now, Shihab, this is the first conversation that they've had, isn't it, since the tariffs came in?
Yes, since we saw that economic turmoil. It hit the UK, it hit a range of countries across the world. And that phone call that they had this afternoon, I'm told, lasted around half an hour. It touched on a range of subjects, as you've just mentioned: Ukraine, trade, and crucially, the trade deal that the United Kingdom is trying to negotiate with the United States. I'm told it's in the final stages. It was raised by Keir Starmer, who says getting that trade deal through is one of the most important things. It's a government priority. So much so that the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will be heading to Washington later this week or next week to discuss this with her opposite number to push those trade deals over the line. But we're told it's quite close.
Now, was there much mention of Trump's upcoming state visit?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, it depends on which readout you look at. The White House seems to suggest that Donald Trump did mention it. He said he's looking forward to it. He was asked about it in the Oval Office. Suggestions it could be in September, but Downing Street haven't confirmed anything yet. Remember, he did have a state visit previously back in 2019 during his first term. He was hosted by the Queen then. The red carpet was rolled out, and by every estimation, he enjoyed it quite a bit. It's very rare for a US president to get 2 state visits, but because these are 2 separate terms, that's why he's getting 2. The last time he was here, there were some quite significant protests. People came out. There was a lot of people around the country who weren't particularly happy. Donald Trump is, of course, a very controversial president, and the hope will be, at a time we're trying to negotiate a trade deal, if that state visit happens, that the government will be hoping there isn't too much backlash from it.
We shall see. Thanks, Jihan. Italian police have confirmed that a British brother and sister were among those killed when a cable car crashed in mountains near Naples. The car plummeted 100 feet to the ground after a cable snapped. Olivia Guthrie reports.
This was an unimaginable, unforeseeable tragedy, according to the company that runs this mountain view ride just south of Naples. A supporting cable snapping yesterday afternoon as the car was over a deep drop near the top of Mount Fato. The Foreign Office says they're in contact with local authorities after it was revealed a British brother and sister are among 4 dead. A 5th person is in a stable but serious condition in hospital.
One person who was still alive was stabilised by our medic within the team. We alerted emergency medical services and the helicopter was dispatched.
Moments before it happened, tourists in a second cable car on the line filmed the view. They remained unaware of the tragedy further up the mountain as rescuers strapped harnesses to the children first, before winching them to safety on the ground below.
When we were inside, we didn't understand what had happened. There was a bit of a jump of about 5 or 10 metres, like a roller coaster. We waited 15 minutes and then went down in the harness.
A similar tragedy 4 years ago took place on a different line in northern Italy, when another cable snapped, another emergency brake failed, another car fell. 14 people died and a child was seriously injured. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, meeting US Vice President J.D. Vance in Rome today, has expressed her condolences to the families of the victims. Prosecutors have opened a multiple manslaughter and culpable disaster investigation. The operator insists they carried out all the required safety conditions, but the local mayor says brakes meant to hold the cable car in place clearly didn't work. Olivia Guthrie, ITV News.
And another Briton has died in Europe after getting caught in an avalanche at a French ski resort. The 27-year-old, who's yet to be named, was reportedly at the side of a road in Val Thorens when he was struck by a wall of snow. He died later in hospital. And Kent police are trying to identify a migrant who died whilst crossing the channel in a small boat today. The RNLI and UK Border Force were called to a medical emergency on board the vessel, but the man couldn't be saved. A teaching union is warning that violence and abuse by pupils against teachers is on the rise. A survey done by the NSUWT found almost half its members have been punched, kicked, shoved or spat at by students in the last 12 months. At its annual conference in Liverpool today, the union called for the government to step up and help tackle what it sees as a growing crisis. Caroline Lewis has more.
One of the worst situations has been trapped in a classroom with a number of 15-year-old boys who wouldn't let you out of the door. It was absolutely terrifying.
Wendy Exton was diagnosed with PTSD after being abused by the children she was trying to educate.
It went on for it must have been about 10 minutes, and what ended it was break time and they wanted to go out.
She's one of a growing number of teachers finding themselves on the front line in the classroom. According to the NASUWT, 4 in 5 teachers say that the number of pupils exhibiting violent and abusive behaviours has increased. 2 in 5 say they've personally experienced it in the last 12 months. And the union estimates there have been 30,000 violent incidents against teachers involving pupils with a weapon in the past year.
What we're calling for is for the government to put together an interagency panel chaired by MPs and ministers to look at addressing this issue across the board. Schools are not in a position to tackle all of the issues that are leading to this escalation of bad behaviour in schools.
In response, the government said it had inherited a broken system, adding, "Our plan for change places a relentless focus on giving every child the best start, no matter their background. A plan for change, which is certainly needed for both teachers and children." Caroline Lewis, ITV News.
Football now, and the race for lucrative promotion to the Premier League has entered the crucial Easter programme. The top 3 in the Championship, chasing 2 automatic promotion places, all won today, leaving Leeds United on top after victory at Oxford. Here's Chris Scudder.
A year ago, Leeds United got this far but blew up, finished in the playoffs and failed to get promotion. They cannot afford another near miss. They knew a win at Oxford would take them top with 3 games to play, and this time they mean business.
Run here, and it has to be for Solomon, and Leeds United move a step closer.
It was a crucial goal, and one that eventually decided the game, as whatever they tried, all Leeds' other attempts would just not go in.
He is unlucky. But Daniel Farke's team are on the brink.
Yes, they're nearly there, and Leeds could be back in the promised land as soon as Easter Monday. Sheffield United, though, have not given up hope of catching the top 2, Leeds and Burnley. The Blades bounced back from 3 damaging defeats with a crucial 2-0 home win over relegation-threatened Cardiff. And it now sets up an almighty 2nd versus 3rd placed promotion battle at Burnley on Monday. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
Now, some lucky punters earned themselves an Easter nest egg today by backing a 200-1 outsider in the 3rd race at Newcastle. Heavenly Heather surprised everyone with the first victory of her career, tying the record for the longest odds winner in British flat racing. Graham Stothard reports.
Heavenly Heather, cloud cover.
Not many saw this coming, least of all the bookies. In her maiden season, Heavenly Heather had never got close to a win, then this.
Heavenly Heather from miles out of the weights wins for Tracy Waggett and Amy Woff. 200-1.
And that gave jockey Amy Woff the joint longest priced winner in the long history of British flat racing.
Well, days like this, you know, everyone wants to even just get rides and just be involved in it, but to have a win, especially something that price as well, it makes it all worth it.
This is a massive shot.
One bookie says they took 400 single bets on the horse. That's one very happy Easter for trainer Tracy Waggett.
But before today, have you had any big outsiders like this?
Yeah, Rector and that, 50-1 and 100-1.
Heather, my mum, she died a year ago and she named the horse just before she passed away.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Well, she's had a few quid on in the betting shop in the sky.
I hope so. I certainly have, so I'm very happy.
Truly a heaven-sent victory on Easter weekend. Graham Stothard, ITV News.
A very good Friday for them. Now, finally, some breaking news that's been 80 years in the making. The government has just announced that pubs will be able to stay open 2 hours later to mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day. It was on the 8th of May 1945 that Germany surrendered, ending the Second World War in Europe. This year, On that date, pubs and bars that normally close at 11 p.m. will have their licences extended to 1 a.m. The Prime Minister said keeping our pubs open for longer will give people the opportunity to raise a glass to all the men and women who serve their country. Cheers to that. The weather is up next, but from all of us, thank you for watching. Good night.